Hi, my name is Brent Satoris. I'm from Search Engine Journal. I'm here with Mark Traphagen from Stone Temple Consulting. Great to have you here. I'm really excited to talk with you a little bit today.
Brent, thanks so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
So one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about is you have been, pretty famous for being on top of Google Authorship.
Mm-hmm.
And Google Authorship over the last couple of years has been really, really important for us from a search marketing perspective. But recently we saw that Google pretty much just pulled what they said. I guess they pulled the visibility of authorship from the search results. And it was interesting because they had kind of done it a little bit, and then they put it back, and everybody said, oh, it's never going to go away, it's there for good, and then all of a sudden it was gone. And on top of that, they actually made a public statement that they were pulling basically the authorship, and that it had essentially failed for what they were trying to do. You know much more about that than I do, so I'd love to pick your mind a little bit on it. Why do you think they decided to pull away from that? And why did they make why did they come out and make such a public statement about it when normally they stay so quiet?
Well, let's talk, Brent, first about the public statement. First of all, the public statement, the official one, was really only made on a Google Plus post by John Mueller. Okay. It wasn't like it was something like a Google blog post or something like that. Now, that is a public statement. It's nice he did that, but it's not. It wasn't, really high drama statement. One thing that was kind of nice, and I think because, as you mentioned very kindly, that I've been involved with this and been one of the premier people studying it, promoting it, talking about it for the last 2.5, 3 years. I did get a phone call the day before from John Mueller, asking me if I would go under an NDA, and he informed me 24 hours ahead, just really as a courtesy, which I thought was very nice, saying, we're going to be pulling it tomorrow, I want you to know. I had like a 45-minute conversation with him, was able to ask him some questions, and as a lot of people probably know, Eric and Enga and I were able to prepare an in-depth article that went live 3 minutes after John Mueller.
Was he able to give you some insight? I mean, that you're able to share?
A little bit, yeah. And we shared that in the article, so it is public. I just was the only for the NDA was just not sharing it before he made the announcement that day.
So why did they end up pulling it, you think?
So the reasons, I can start from the reasons that they gave out publicly and the things that John kind of confirmed to me, and then move a little bit more into my speculation.
Sure.
But the official reason was at the end that John Mueller said that as they looked at the results they were getting from it, over the 3 years, and especially probably over the last year, that it just wasn't giving the value to searchers that they hoped for it. Now, that's all they said. So I want to stop there and say, what do they mean by that, and why wouldn't it be giving value? Well, we can begin to speculate that a couple of things. One is that, as again, a study that Eric Enga and I published on Stone Temple Consulting blog showed that we studied, a bunch of major publishers and over 500 writers that publish on those sites, and we showed what we suspected was that adoption and correct adoption of doing the complete authorship markup was very low among major. Now we know there were some verticals, real estate, lawyers, Google Plus nuts, people that jumped all over it, but in a lot of spaces, people just weren't using it. They just weren't implementing it. So that means an incomplete signal for Google, and an incomplete signal is not a good thing for Google to put into the search results. I think the second thing was that they weren't quite ready yet to be able to say, we can be sure that content from a given author is high quality. Sure. I think they were making some strides toward that. As you mentioned, in December of last year, they began to have two classes of authorship, where you could have a photo showing, and some people didn't get the photo, and they just got a byline. Sure. For a while. And that seemed to be the beginning of an attempt at a kind of quality differentiation. But I have a feeling that the search team basically came to the authorship people and said, look, this, even having the byline in there seems to be giving a imprimatur on the search result that maybe we, are not ready to stand with yet.
That seems really interesting because they came out so many times saying how well it was performing and how much it was improving people's click-throughs and stuff like that. Not necessarily Google, but the conversation around it was that way. So it's interesting that it would actually, from Google's perspective, be the opposite.
Yeah, and that's the thing that people had to realize, and that I tried to get out when the final end came, was that if you go and look back, a lot of the hype about click-through rate and authority and everything that was there, again, anything that Google does, I think sometimes people assume because Google is so big and so powerful and has so many resources that they can do everything perfectly and well, and they have infinite resources to do everything. I think at the end of the day, well, here's what I believe. 3 years ago, when authorship was introduced, I think Google was very sincere about this is something we hope people will really catch on to, that it will be massively adopted, that it will provide huge and accurate data for us that we can eventually massage into something that is worthwhile using as a search ranking factor. Okay? But I think that they saw after 3 years that that wasn't going to happen. That depending on publishers and authors to accurately mark up their content, to do that sort of thing. So I think that they've.
I laugh only because that's a recurring theme amongst Google's
Isn't it?
effort to say we really expected you to do a better job giving us our information.
Yeah, part of that may be just the engineer culture at Google. They kind of think like everybody is going to be like us.
Yeah.
We're all nerds. Give us some coding to do, we'll do it. But most people aren't like that. So I think what they're moving toward is the whole semantic search approach that we see coming, the whole knowledge graph, where Google is trying to train its algorithm to be able to recognize real-world entities, persons, places, things, events, things like that, and connect them together, see the connections between them without humans having to intervene in between. I think that's the direction that they're going. I think what we're seeing here is kind of a pullback from the too public experiment into something that's more where they're going to be spending the next several years training the algorithm to be able to recognize real people on the web, what content they're connected to, and what that content means.
With regards to that, Google has made such a strong stance, as far as looking at authority and saying we want to identify the author.
I think that author authority, personal authority and connected with content is very much important to Google. I think it's something that we had Matt Cutts talking about it right up until he went on his hiatus, saying, this is something, he'd always couch it, in personal terms and say, I'd really like to see this would be valuable to me, he would always use the example, he said if years from now, Danny Sullivan made a comment on some obscure forum or blog and that got, blown up or we saw that and that got elevated in my search results, we'd see that. Another aspect that we're watching right now that's interesting is the same time that authorship switched off in the regular search results, on your personalized results, if you're searching while logged into Google, people and brands that you follow on Google Plus, or even possibly are in your Gmail contacts, their content can get elevated in your search results when it's relevant for Google Plus content, and even show up with the old-fashioned author photo and byline. So personalization might be a part of it for the future. Saying Brent, if Google sees evidence that you know me in some way, and that you tend to like my content, maybe they're going to show you or elevate more of my content to you. That could be one direction. But the bigger, I'll just sign off with this, the bigger thing I think that's happening again is the better you understand the knowledge graph, the semantic search project that Google was on. It's about, I think they did learn something from the 3 years of authorship. That will now be translated into helping the algorithm to be able to identify, find clues. Whether links will be part of it, but it's also writing style. It's also other references, citations pointing at a person's writing to say this is Mark Traphagen's writing here. And once we know that, then we can begin to look at how authoritative it is on a topic area, and should we boost that when people search for it.
Well, I want to thank you for spending the time with us. I think this is probably one of the most important topics right now for SEO going forward, just because I do believe they're trying to solve that problem of authority, and I think this is one of the ways in which they're going to really tackle it. So I really appreciate you spending the time with us. Once again, this is Mark Traphagen from Stone Temple, here with Search Engine Journal, talking about Google authorship. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. I enjoyed the conversation.
Cheers.
Enterprise SEM versus B2C?
Yeah, of course. So when you're dealing with enterprise SEM, you're not only working with a large-scale account.
Evaluate and build high-quality links to rank her customers on the first page of Google. But let's be honest, Susan is just sick of it. How can she take care of business when her daily work is devastated by unpredictable Google algorithm changes? Should she and her team sell their souls to abide by the ever-changing rules of link quality? No, absolutely not. Susan, meet Christoph. He has the power and trust to conquer SEO fears. With his courageous team, he has developed the master of all link building technologies, called Link Research Tools. Their aim